While many Americans are still waiting to receive their coronavirus stimulus checks worth $1,200 or less, some American millionaires are getting a far bigger boost. According to Forbes, about 43,000 taxpayers who earn more than $1 million per year are each set to receive nearly $1.7 million on average. This is due to a provision in the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, also known as the CARES Act. For more on this, let's bring in Janet Novack. She's an editor for the Money Channel for Forbes. Janet, thank you for joining us. Can you first please explain in layman's terms what this provision is in this stimulus bill and why these wealthy Americans are getting quite a lot of money from the government?
To understand it, you have to go all the way back to the 2017 Trump tax cuts, which were skewed to business and the wealthy. But they wanted to reduce the cost of those cuts and make them a little less skewed. So they put in certain provisions that limited the ability of wealthy people to use their losses from their businesses. And these are people who own what are called pass-through corporations. So the corporation doesn't pay any taxes itself. All of the income goes to the individual's tax return. And what they said basically was, if you've got losses from a business, you can only use it to offset $500,000 per couple a year of other income. That other income might be your big salary as a CEO or big capital gains. And that was, so that only really affected couples that had more than $500,000 in income. Well, in the CARES Act, they suspended for 2018, 2019, 2020, all of these limits on losses that existed and that were put into the 2017 tax cut to make it a little less skewed to the rich. But they suspended them, which means that if you have more than $500,000 in other income, you can go back and redo your 2018 return and claim that big loss. Or you can claim it in 2019,
so, Janet,
2020.
I think what a lot of people, when they hear you, you did such a great job of explaining that. I feel like when they hear that, they think to themselves, well, why on earth are these individuals allowed to claim these losses from previous years? This is supposed to be, you know, a bill about coronavirus relief.
Well, it is not unusual for Congress, when they're trying to stimulate the economy, to say that corporations can go and carry back their losses to previous years, which lets them actually get checks back from the government of taxes they paid in previous years. Here, these individuals who were told they couldn't have these losses in 2018 and 2019 can file amended returns and get money back. So the Joint Committee on Taxation looked at just the $86 billion that it's going to cost the government in 2020, and they said, well, you know, most of this doesn't affect you at all if you have less than $500,000 in income. And they found that $70 billion of this benefit is going to people with over $1 million in income. That's 43,000 families that are getting about 1.6 million, a little over that, in benefit just in 2020. And then in 21, there'll be even more benefit. So if you look at it this way, over the 10 years, these individuals are getting about 180 billion in benefits. And the cost of the whole stimulus checks, those stimulus checks that are going to most families, is about 290 billion. So you think of it, and it's wow, a very small group of people who are getting, well, 2/3 of what the rest of us are getting.
Well, you know, Janet, I think when a lot of Americans hear that and they think, you know, I'm waiting for my, you know, $1,200 check or whatever it might be, which maybe, you know, will cover the rent for a month and a few groceries, and they hear that, it can be very upsetting. How did this provision work its way into this bill? Was this just poorly thought out? Was this something that was thrown in at the last minute? You know, Who proposed it? It seems like the sort of thing that voters would want to know more about how this got into the bill.
No, it is something Republicans put in, and it's something that a lot of people have wanted to change since the Trump tax cuts. In fact, it might have been the reason that President Trump had said at one point, some of my rich real estate and friends are not happy with me. But, and the argument for this, by the way, is that limiting people from taking what are real losses isn't fair because it's kind of a heads the government wins, tails you lose approach. That is the argument for doing this. The argument against doing this is about stimulus, this is about COVID-19. Why are we going back and giving a benefit to rich people that was taken away from them in 2017 because so much else was given to them in that tax cut? So that's the argument against.
And so, Janet, how are Democratic lawmakers and tax experts, frankly, are reacting to this?
Well, the tax experts who think it was never fair to limit these losses say, great, now we've fixed something and these rich people can take the real losses from their businesses. And the Democrats and other tax experts say, wait a minute, this is a giveaway. This isn't what we need to help families and small businesses stay above water. So you can imagine that.
All right. Well, Janet Novack, thank you. Thank you so much for your time and joining us and explaining this, rather complicated element of the CARES Act to us. But thank you so much for that.
Quite welcome.